Shri Vaibhav Srivastav ji, AIG and SP MP State Cybercrime. And we also have Dr. Naveenkumar Chaudhary sir, Dean and Professor Cybersecurity, NFSU Gandhinagar. Sir, we welcome you to the Ahmedabad branch of ICAI. And I request my committee colleague C.A. Samir Chaudhary to escort the faculty for the next session, Shri Vaibhav Srivastav ji, to the dais. Please, Samir bhai. And I request coordinator for the session, C.A. Shruti Mehta, to please accompany them.
Thank you, Abhinav, and good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to introduce the stalwart speaker, Dr. Naveenkumar Chaudhary ji, who is a professor of cybersecurity and dean at the National Forensic Science University, Gandhinagar, India, since 2019. He has earned his PhD in engineering and advanced certification in cyber and network security. He heads the Training and International Relations Department of the university and holding the additional charge of the director NFSU Goa campus also. He has an extensive experience of more than 25 years in engineering education, research and government. Prior to joining the university, he was a director at Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. In his official capacity as a joint director and director in Government of India, he steered many cutting-edge ICT projects and worked extensively on the policy formulation in cybersecurity and e-governance. He has been recently appointed as a courtesy research professor in the Knight Foundation School of Computing and Information Science, Florida International University, Miami, USA. He is a recipient of a letter of appreciation for the contribution towards the cause of literacy from Brent State Dennis MP, Algoma, Canada in 1994. His domain expertise and areas of research interest are in cybersecurity, digital forensic, e-governance, drone forensics, next generation networks, and advanced cyber range. With this introduction, I would now request the committee member to just welcome him with a memento, please.
Okay, namaskar and very good morning to all the office bearers of ICAI and the participants who have come from different parts of India, especially all the professionals. And this topic of cyber security, sometimes it sounds to be very, very complex. Because people, mix it with procedure, people mix it with technology, and sometimes people talk about people also. People talk about a lot of things, and that's why it becomes very, very difficult to understand. So I will try to pitch this case study at a level wherein a layman person can understand. And how comfortable you are in Hindi? Anybody who doesn't understand Hindi? Everybody understand. So I'll keep on speaking in Hindi as well as English and try to make it clear to you what happened, why it happened, and why we have to be alert in India to safeguard against such kind of breaches. We know in India what happens that even if the breach happens, so there is a tendency that people don't come out and report that breach. Because there is always a fear that they may not be meeting the compliances. Okay? And it will also expose that their house is not in order. And reputational loss also. So this is one of the case studies I found wherein breach happened and the company was very proactive. They faced the situation, they put their house in order, and whatever the compliances which were not there in place, whatever things which were not right in their home or in their form, they put it in order. So that's why I have picked up this case study. Otherwise, there are many case studies which can be discussed, but then there need to be some takeaway from that case study. Okay, if something went wrong, people can talk at length that why it went wrong, and then they can, have a lot of lesson learned, lot of fault finding, fault lines they will, find out from that. But the ultimate thing is that what is the, corrective action which you have taken. So that's why this case study is very, very, it's an eye opener. So now what this case study is, there is a company called TJX, and it was one of the leading off-price retailer of apparel and home fashions. Basically they were into the clothings, and it has its base in America, Canada, Europe, and they were doing very well. Okay, and you can see this case study is a very popular case study, and you will find in the MBA books and all, even in some of the account books. But I will be covering the cyber aspect of it. So what happened that on January 17th, they announced that they are victim of an intrusion into portions of its information system that process and store customer transaction data. So it means they reported that some breach has happened, okay? And since they did not have that expertise to know the scale of the breach, they involved two companies, or they hired two companies for. So what happened that whenever any cyber incident happened, two things are very, very important, which people have to understand. That one thing is incident management, and second thing, important thing, which is there is the investigation, getting into the right cause of it. So you should be able to plug all the loopholes. And one more thing is very, very important these days, that we call it crisis management plan. So if any breach happens, you have to ensure that your business should not come to standstill, okay? So you have to have your plan in order, that I will be discussing little later. So the three activity need to take place. So just reporting the breach will not serve any purpose, because ultimately you are the victim, you are the sufferer. Perpetrator has done his job, okay? So the moment you report the breach, if you have to be a vigilant, or if you have a good practices in place, then you have to also take care of two more things, that you should have incident response management. So what is incident response management is that if some breach has happened, you should be able to address immediately as a first responder if you have some capability. If you don't have a capability, then you should have some SLA or some arrangement or some agreement with some expert who should be helping you in that, incident response management. So the main aim of incident response management is to detect and contain it. So further damage should not accrue. So this is the main aim, okay, of incident response management. Else what will happen, that the attack may, the attack may be more severe else, okay? So that's why that incident response management is very, very important. So since they did not have that capability, so they hired two companies, one for incident response, that was General Dynamics Corporation, and another was International Business Machines Corporation, to help with the investigation. So what went wrong? What is the magnitude of the breach? So to understand that, they also involved one forensic company for the investigations. So the initial investigation revealed that from July 2005 till December 18, 2006, hackers stole 90 million credit cards and debit card data, okay? So what has happened, that that credit and debit card, there it has a magnetic strip. So now when you scan that strip, so what happens, that there are certain data that need to be read, and even if you are storing those data, certain data supposed to be kept in an encrypted form, okay, by the vendor or by the store, whosoever is is using that credit card or whosoever is operating on that credit card. Okay. So what was happened in this case, that the portion of the data which is supposed to be kept encrypted, so they did not keep it encrypted. And second thing is that the certain data is not supposed to be stored on your system, so they stored that also. So I will come to it, that how it happened. So what are the data which is on your credit or debit card that is not supposed to be retained by by the vendor or by the store where you have made any purchase? Anybody? Anybody? What is the data which is on your credit card or debit card which is not supposed to be stored by the vendor, or even if vendor is storing any data, it has to be in encrypted form? Can anybody? CVV. Anything else? Now, what are those data, and who governs this standard, that what to be stored and what not to be stored? Okay. So I have a slide for it, but then there is something known as PCI DSS. Okay. So this is not a legal document, but then who are the leading this credit card or debit card providers? So they came out with one standard. We call it standard. Okay. So what happens, that whenever they give a payment gateway access to any retailer or a store, so they have to sign an agreement. Okay. And when they have to sign an agreement, so they have to abide by certain standards. Okay. So PCI, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. So that is a standard, and there are 12 controls which are mentioned in that. So therein you will find all these details, that what you could keep and what you could not keep, and what if you keep, it has to be kept in an encrypted form. And that's why otherwise anyone can misuse that data. So there is a standard. So what happened? So this payment card industry data security standard, it was established in 2004 by American Express. Why American Express? JCB, MasterCard, Worldwide, Visa International. Why only these people established it? Okay, I'll just tell you that who are the world leaders in the payment gateway. It's a big business. Okay, Visa, MasterCard, earlier Diner Card was also one of the lead. So what they did, they have their own payment gateway, and they used to levy some charges for that. So when you pay 2 rupees per 1,000 transaction, or 2 rupees per 2,000 transactions, something like that, so a share of it goes to them. That's why India has also taken some initiative in 2016, and we have come out with our own gateway, that is RuPay. Okay, because else the major share was going to them. So since this Visa, MasterCard, these people, they are the major stakeholder, but then the government wanted some accountability on their part also. That okay, fine, you are giving these services to the common people, but what could be stored on the server or the machine of the store or the retail house which is using this card for the transaction, and what they cannot. So you have to come out. So these people sat down and they came out with the standard, that standard what we call it PCI DSS. Okay. So fine, they came out with some standard, and then so what you can store and what you cannot store. So let's have a look at the screen. So PCI says that primary account number, yes. Cardholder name, yes. Service code, yes. Expiration date, somebody said no, but yes, you can. Okay? But there's a one more condition to it. Must be protected if stored in conjunction with PAN. So it means protected means it has to be kept in an encrypted form, and that encryption should not be breakable. Okay? Now service code, yes. Expiration date, somebody said no, you can. But only thing is that you have to encrypt it and then you have to keep it. So it should not be in a readable form. Okay? And then full magnetic strip, sensitive authentication data, no, you can't. Because there are additional data on that magnetic strip. You can't take that, can't keep that. Full magnetic, okay, then CVC2, CVV2, CID, what you talk about that, what is that back of your card. So no, you can't, but they kept that also. And that was the major, reason of this breach. Okay, then pin block, no, you can't keep, because when you put the pin, you can easily tap the pin, but you can't keep that, but they kept that also. Okay. So now, this was the violation, and that data was on their machine. So what exactly happened, how the hackers got into it? So there is something known as war diving. What do you mean by war diving? Anybody? War driving. WARDRIVING. What do you mean by that? Because what happens, all these things start with small things. Like people, how many of you use credit card and debit card? All of you, fine. But how many of you knew this thing? Okay. Now merchants have to know it. Why? The party whom you audit, assess, or you manage their accounting, they need to know it. Okay, else what they will do? They will do some violation. Okay, so now, war driving, what happens, one more, mistake we do. These days, people feel we are very tech savvy. Everything we can connect it to, network or internet. Thoda apna hotspot de dena, thoda ye kar dena, and all these things we do. But we have to understand the security and the risk also associated with it. So what happens, that when you use a Wi-Fi, okay, your signal spill over even beyond your, beyond your office periphery, okay, or beyond your house periphery. If it is a store or a retail shop, beyond the periphery of the retail or the store. So there is some guideline on that also, that how strong you can keep your signal, so it should remain within the periphery. So that need to be managed by the store people, or whosoever has enabled that, wireless access point. So when your signal spill over beyond the boundary of your house, or beyond your house premises or store premises, then there are people, what they do, they keep a GPS, and then they keep a scanner, a laptop with a scanner, and they drive through on the road and they try to detect which all Wi-Fi access is available, okay, and then is it open or is it protected? If it is open, what they can do, they can try some password cracking algorithms, runway or dictionary attack or brute force attack, and they will try to get into your network, okay. And second thing is that, fine, even if some encryption is being used, then what kind of encryption it is? So these days, when we talk about encryption, so there are 2-3 categories of encryption. One, encryption is very much there, but it has met end of life. It means that encryption is no more being used due to security reason or the algorithm which is weak, or it doesn't take even minute to break that algorithm. Okay, so we call it obsolete, okay, or outdated algorithm or the algorithm which has met end of life. Okay. So now, how many of you are aware that which algorithm you are using for accessing Wi-Fi in your home or office? Please raise your hand. Okay. So what happens that when you access your Wi-Fi, so you can use 3 standards. One is WEP, wireless equivalent privacy. So that is basically it provides you some sort of privacy or encryption, but it is of not higher grade. So now what happened that it was broken. So in 2004, this became obsolete and the industry decided that we have to go for some algorithm which is strong. So they migrated to what we call it WPA. But in WPA also you have 2 versions. What are those versions? Anybody? What are the versions in WPA? Okay. So what happened? Why they came out with 2 versions? One version because there was a requirement to change the hardware in your machines, in your modems which are in your house. Okay. So any change you are bringing in the system, it should not immediately affect your functioning. So what they did, that the interim version contained the setup with an enhanced security, but which could have been managed from the router which was in your home. And for the advanced version, what you use today, what they did, they said, okay, in all new versions which are being manufactured, it will support WPA 2. Got it? So that's why they said, okay, fine. So now they had a 2 version, but that version was basically introduced to do away with WEP. So they were using the encryption algorithm, but they were using the algorithm that is known as WEP. And in 2004, it was sentenced vulnerable, okay, and it had met its end of life. But they were still using it. So what these guys did, I'll just show you that what they did. That there's a guy called, his name was Albert Gonzalez, an American hacker. He was the one who was behind this, breach. So he sat in his car along with his friend. He was in Miami, he was driving through, and then one of the stores, he found that there's a Wi-Fi access available, and that what I'll show you war driving, what you call it war driving, yeah. So this is a war driving. When you sit in a car and then try to find out you have a laptop, and then you are, so why laptop? Because you are scanning, okay, and you have a good Wi-Fi dongle, so it can receive even the weak signal. And GPS, because you should keep the track of the latitude and longitude of that place, because there will be hundreds of Wi-Fi data or Wi-Fi transmitters which will be on at that point of time in the same location. So that's why they do that. So they identified it, and they identified they were using WEP. So what they did, they broke that encryption, and then they got the access of this TJX store. And then what they did, anybody? After that, anybody who is aware of this case study? After that, once you have got access, what you have to do? Wi-Fi access you have got of a system, what you have to do then? Anybody? Yeah? You have to, first of all, once you have got the access to the Wi-Fi, the second thing is that you have to get the access to the database. Okay? If this database has some interface with the website, so you have to manipulate, the website, okay, using some technique. So next thing what they did, that they started manipulating with the code of that website, okay, and they used a very simple technique. and they were able to they were able to breach the security of the website, and they were successful in that. Okay, so now the 2 points here. One failure was at the access level, Wi-Fi level. Another failure was at your website level. So we call it top OWSP attack, and then you have to protect your website against it. Okay, so now website was also not secure. If one breach has happened, at least your website would have been secure. So the database which is there, he cannot get access to the database in one go. Okay, the database must be protected through some credential. So they were able to breach that, and they got into that. Okay, and they were able to steal all the data, credit card and debit card. Even if you have stored the credit card and debit card data, that is not a much issue of concern. But what is a much issue of concern is if you get the expiry date, PIN and CVV. Okay, so what these guys did, once they got, because this store was not supposed to store all this data. So when they breached the security of the website, so they were able to get the PIN, they were able to get the CVV, they were able to get all the dates, expiry date and the issue date, everything, name, everything. And the PAN is the number which is written on your card, everything they got. After that, what they did, they went to some retail store, some grocery store, and they tried the same number and data. If they were successful, they realized, okay, this card is working and this card can be used. So they did that exercise. Some of the data, they sold it to somebody whom they sold. You see that when you get this kind of data, it's a huge data. Okay, so now you can manipulate, the perpetrator can manipulate that data, or if such a huge data, he may sell it to the other people also. Okay, and those people may sell this data to the other people who will misuse that data. So this guy did the same thing. What he did, that so this fellow, what he did, okay, there are some terms here. With the help of his accomplices, I'll just read. Albert Gonzalez, an American hacker, plotted the TJX data breach from July 2005 to January 2007. Gonzalez started with Watt driving along route number 1 in Miami to discover vulnerable retailers' hotspots. With the help of his accomplices, Stephen Watt, employed delicate SQL injection to get access to the database and to install the sniffer software into the server. So I told you that getting access to the database is not easy until unless you use some technique to breach the security. So SQL injection is one kind of vulnerability in the website. If you exploit that, you will get access to the website and if any database which is attached therein. So credit card information was stripped through ARP spoofing technique. What is ARP spoofing technique? Anybody? What is ARP? Okay, and was uploaded onto 2 foreign servers leased by Gonzalez in Latvia and Ukraine. Okay, so what is ARP? ARP is the address resolution protocol. So what happens that when somebody has to you have heard of man in the middle? Yes. Man in the middle. So this is a man in the middle kind of attack. He is not an authorized user of that network. But to become an authorized user of that network, so what he has to do, he has to get access of the IP address, and then he has to make a link of that IP address to his own Mac. So this is a technical term, but then what it means that some outsider has come in your network, and this is a technique used to come in your network. Now, after obtaining the credit card information, Gonzalez sold the credit card numbers and pins to a Ukrainian card seller, Maxim Yastermysky. These people are criminals, I am telling you. So the person whom he sold, that person had also hacked 12 bank accounts in Turkey. So later on he was also caught. and when the American, court tried them, or the American judiciary tried them. So and then when in May 2008, Gonzalez was apprehended with $1.1 million cash, a 2006 BMW, a diamond, and other assets. He schemed to earn $50 million from a series of data breaches, according to his chat logs found by the government. He worked as an informant for the US Secret Service before he was arrested. So what it means, don't trust anybody. In cyber world we say, वो जो दिखता है वैसा होता नहीं है. So, and it's a virtual world. So don't trust anybody. He was an informant for the US Secret Service. Gonzalez was sentenced on March 25, 2010 for the TJX case. US District Judge Pati Saris sentenced Gonzalez to 20 years in prison. Okay, and he was involved in other crimes also. In that also he was sentenced for 20 years, and it ran concurrently. So now, there was one inadequacy in the wireless network, then improper storage of customer data we have seen, and failure to encrypt customer account data. I had already told you that there are three things: what you cannot take, and what you can take in open, and what if you take, you need to keep it encrypted. So there also there was a failure. Okay. And I told you the modus operandi which they use was ward driving. Now you can read this, highlights of the fallout resulting from the TJX breach. You see what was the business harm. Okay. So the company agreed to pay $9.75 million to settle state investigation. The company settled with the Federal Trade Commission USA. As a result, TJX has to create a comprehensive security program to protect the confidentiality of personal information it collects. In addition, TJX must submit to a third-party audit of the program every 2 years for the next 2 decades. The company settled lawsuits brought by consumers and banker groups. Customers were provided with a special 3-day sale and vouchers as a result of the settlement of class action lawsuits. The company settled with Visa and MasterCard for almost $41 million. Why? Why this? Because they violated PCI DSS standard. If you are using the POS machine, you can't violate that. They will also sue you. That is what they did. So they paid around $41 million to settle with them. The company was also required to implement a data security program to ensure that this type of incident could never happen again. The company offered 3 years of credit monitoring to about 450,000 people who needed to provide their driver's license for transactions that occurred in the stores. The company set aside $250 million for breach-related costs. So now, company realized the importance of cyber security. Usually what people do, they don't keep any budget for the cyber security. And what I recommend, that whatever earning you have, you keep 5% of it for the cyber security initiatives. So that point you have to drive home when you look at their ledger, that okay, fine, you will find all kind of heads, but you will not find the head regarding the cyber security. What is the equipment, what initiative, what third-party audit, VAPT, whatever, it comes with cost. So now, do they have any budget for that? Otherwise, they will never keep, any focus on the cyber security. Now, one thing is that they paid heavily. So now, post-breach liabilities, see. Discovery, notification and response, legal counsel, mailing, call center support, discounted product offers, lost productivity, employees' attention diverted or put on other tasks requiring attention, opportunity cost, loss of customers and attaining new customers, regulatory fines, FTC, PCI, Sarbanes-Oxley, they also impose. These are the standards which need to be complied with. So they also imposed fine, okay, on them. Restitution, money set aside for payment, additional security and audit requirements, those levied as a result of a breach, other liabilities. So you see what, what was the kind of, post-breach liability they had. Now all happened because of the war driving. And why they exploited that? Because their network was all open and they were using the outdated encryption algorithm, WEP. So lesson learned that first of all compliances has to be in place. So you must, you place a CTO, but then that CTO or the cyber security officer, has he knowledge about these all things or not? So how we will do the audit and assessment? Now let me tell you, government organizations are very, very careful regarding that. So in every organization they have CTOs, they have CISOs, but what I am finding that industry has to still to get into that mood because it comes with some cost. Okay? So in India, in other countries, there are some stringent regulations. That's why people are complying with that. So they know if they don't comply with that, there will be a heavy fine. So they can't afford that. So in India, we have to focus on the compliances. So first of all, WEP was obsolete. Why they were using it? At the organizational level, their signal should have not spilled over from the periphery of their store. Okay? But there was a spillover of the signal from the periphery of that store. It means the technical people who are responsible for it, or if they would have outsourced to some person, he was not competent enough. Okay. Audit and assessment, two level of audit and assessment is very important. One local and the other is third party. So that is basically a confirmatory. Your local audit is in line or not. If it is risk-based assessment, fine. So it should be confirmed by third party, independent party. Okay. Now CSP and CCMP. This organization has a cyber security policy or not, cyber crisis management plan or not. Until unless they have these documents, they will not know what is war driving, what is WEP, what protocol they have to follow to protect their system if they have kept the Wi-Fi access or they have access point network in place. So all these things needs that they should draw a policy. What should be the role of the people who are manning that machine? What should be the role of the CTO? What should be the role of the third party who is providing them some services? Let it be cloud service, let it be ISP, let it be, the server maintenance agency, whosoever. Okay. So all these will come in your cyber security plan. Cyber security plan consists of two documents, cyber security policy and then your cyber crisis management plan. Start speaking about all these things in your audits, then only people will understand. And if you want a greater detail of it, there are many courses which are being offered by National Forensic Sciences University. So cyber is one thing, it's a real challenge, real threat, and it's a virtual world, everything is porous. So whatever importance you give to the physical security, you have to treat the cyber with the same intent. Else there will be mishaps, there will be incidents. Okay. Training for first responders, people who are manning the machine, people who are managing their database, are they trained or not? In this case, he was not trained. That's why whatever they were, scanning from that strip, everything was stored in open. So else, if the person who was managing the database, if he would have been aware, if he would have been, aware of that PCI standard, he would have never done that. Then funds for cyber security, keep some budget for the cyber security. Every firm should have a budget, and if you are a third party auditor, account auditor or anything in whatever capacity as a CA, you tell them this is very important. This is the time you have, now you people are talking about e-ledger, you people are talking about e-business marketplace. Okay, now in university we are working that if e-business marketplace is compromised, then what we have to look into. Because there are no standards. Because if there is some physical shop collapses, you can do the damage assessment, you have some model to work out. What about e-marketplaces? What about e-commerce websites? Okay, major challenge. We talk about virtual currency. Now, there was one law enforcement agency came to me that we need a help. we found some crypto wallets. I said, fine, we'll send our faculty. We sent one faculty there, and they found some cryptocurrency in that wallet. Now, how to do the valuation of that cryptocurrency? Because if any law enforcement agency has caught something, so they have to do a valuation. Has India recognized that cryptocurrencies? Are there legal exchanges in India? Okay, how to do the valuation? The two countries which has recognized it, see what kind of countries it is. They have a unstable geopolitical status. Their economy is in shambles. Let it be Senegal, let it be Venezuela. Okay, so now look at their political stability and look at their health of their economy. Can you take a benchmark of a cryptocurrency valuation from there? So all these things need a lot of debate and impaneling of experts to review the security. If you don't know how to, don't go by the third party कि चलो one access point लगा दिया, ये लगा दिया, तार लगा दिया, network आ गया, काम कर लेते हैं. No. Is anybody has reviewed the security architecture? Spend some money, call the expert, get it reviewed. At least if some gaps are there, he will bring it out, he will bring it to your notice, or he will suggest something. Okay, so now these are the things which need to be done, and if anybody is talking about e-ledger, anybody is talking about e-marketplace, anybody is using computer, anybody is using network, so whatever I have covered today, it is very, very relevant. Okay, so these days accounting, computer would have made the task easy, but security has become complex. Okay, so that need to be remembered. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Respected sir, thank you for giving an enlightening knowledge to us. Sir, being a professional, we are closely associated with the finance of the clients. And many times the top management discuss with us all their phenomena, all the things. But sir, guiding them on security part, and especially cyber security, is a need of an hour. We know that एक छोटी सी चूक होगी ना, तो बहुत बड़ा havoc हो सकता है. And this credit card company is one of the best example for that thing. So sir, thank you for guiding us. And I expect that sir, always you will be coming at Ahmedabad branch and guiding for this thing. Thanks a lot, sir.